Billionaire lost his fortune overnight, until the young Janitor said, "Sir, you forgot this one paper." Cassian Wells had once been the kind of name that inspired awe. At 33, he had built Veritech from the ground up, a financial software empire that disrupted traditional investment models and put him on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list before he had even finished his 5th year in business. Calm, precise, and principled, he had been called everything from visionary to genius. And now, he was the man who lost everything. One catastrophic investment gone wrong, a partner he had trusted like family who backed out of a joint deal at the last moment, leaving Cassian's name alone on the paperwork. It triggered a domino effect. Stocks plummeted, clients pulled out, and Veritech's market value shrank by 70% in less than 24 hours. The media feasted. Headlines were merciless. The fall of the tech king, Wells' empire in freefall, from billionaire to liability. Shareholders demanded emergency meetings. Executives argued over next steps. Whispers turned into accusations. One by one, even the people he had once mentored began suggesting, delicately, that maybe it was time for him to consider stepping down for the good of the company. Cassian said very little. He sat through it all with a clenched jaw, his expression unreadable. And when the meeting finally broke up close to midnight, he walked out of the boardroom without saying goodbye to anyone. The hallways of Veritech were empty and dimly lit. Most of the building had shut down for the night. The silence pressed in from all sides, unfamiliar and unnerving. This was the place he had poured his life into. The very walls had once pulsed with energy, hope, ambition. Now, it was just hollow. Cassian walked slowly, a folder of documents still clutched in one hand. Some pages slipped loose as he moved. He did not notice. His mind was elsewhere, spiraling with numbers, betrayals, losses he could not control. He stopped in front of the elevator, hit the call button, and waited. Behind him, a soft voice cut through the silence. "Sir, you dropped this." Cassian turned. A young woman stood a few steps away, dressed in a navy blue janitorial uniform. Her long blonde hair was pulled up into a neat ponytail, a few strands escaping near her temples. She held up a single white sheet of paper delicately between her fingers. He blinked, as if pulled back into the present. The woman stepped forward and offered him the paper with both hands. "I found it just outside the boardroom." Cassian glanced at it briefly. He recognized it, barely. One of a dozen internal memos, maybe a draft, maybe something already outdated. What did it matter? He exhaled, voice low and rough. "It does not mean anything anymore. You can throw it away." The woman hesitated. "Are you sure?" He gave a tired nod. "Yes, it is just trash now." She looked at him for a moment longer but did not argue. Cassian turned back toward the elevator as it arrived with a soft ding. He stepped in without looking back. Lena Everhart remained where she stood, the page still in her hand. She watched the elevator doors close around him. Only then did she carefully fold the paper in half and slip it into the notebook tucked in the side pocket of her cleaning cart. She did not know exactly why she did it, only that something in her said this paper deserved a second look. And something in him, beneath all that silence and exhaustion, did not quite believe his own words. She resumed pushing her cart down the hallway, her footsteps quiet against the polished floor, the folded paper resting beside her worn gloves. It was late. The building slept. But the story had not ended yet. That night, Lena Everhart sat on the edge of her narrow bed, a second-hand desk lamp casting a dim circle of light over her room. The scent of instant noodles lingered in the air. She had barely kicked off her shoes before reaching for the folded paper tucked into her notebook. She smoothed it out on the desk. It was a one-page internal memo, unfinished, a little messy, but as she read, her brow furrowed, not in confusion, but recognition. The language was dense, technical. It proposed the early framework of a machine learning algorithm designed to predict market behavior in real time, something still experimental, even in cutting-edge financial tech. Lena read it again. It had gaps, missing variables, assumptions untested. But beneath that, there was structure, potential. A spine of logic that, if refined, could do more than react to markets. It could anticipate. She was still a student, months from completing her data analysis certification. But this was more advanced and more daring than anything she had seen in her textbooks. And someone had just tossed it aside. She pulled out a pencil and began marking the page. By 2 a.m., she had read it 5 times, circled 4 key flaws, and jotted down 3 ways to tighten the logic. She did not know why she cared. Maybe because it felt like something not yet broken. 3 days later, she saw him again. Lena had just finished mopping the hallway near the executive lounge when Cassian Wells stepped out of the elevator. He looked slightly better than he had that night. Still tired, still pale, but not hollow. She hesitated, then took a quiet breath and approached him. "Mr. Wells?" He looked up. She offered the page, now clean, flattened, and covered in soft pencil notes. "I did not throw it away," she said. "I hope that is okay. I'm sorry if I crossed a line, but I think this paper has value." Cassian accepted it, glancing at the margin notes. His expression tightened as he read. "You understood this?" he asked. "Not all of it," Lena admitted, "but enough to follow what it's trying to do. I'm studying data analytics. I work here part-time." He scanned the notes again, quiet. "That algorithm is probably dead," he said finally, "like everything else in this company." Lena didn't flinch. If people gave up that easily, we would not have electricity, or airplanes, or the internet. Cassian looked up sharply. For a moment, they just stood there, 2 people from opposite ends of a building, and a world. He studied her face, steady, sincere, no pretense. She was not pitching an idea. She was not trying to impress him. She just saw value in something others ignored. After a pause, he said, "You want to keep a copy? Go ahead." Lena smiled slightly. "Thank you." Cassian handed the paper back and turned away. The elevator opened. He stepped in. Just before the doors closed, he looked over his shoulder, only for a second. But in that second, something shifted. The burden in his eyes, once unbearable, looked a fraction lighter. And Lena, alone in the hallway, held the paper like it was something more than ink and formulas. She still did not know what would come next. But maybe, just maybe, it was not the end of the story. It was late afternoon when Cassian stepped into the main lobby of Verity Tech, distracted by the echo of another exhausting call with a shareholder who had lost confidence in him. He walked with his head low, one hand stuffed into his coat pocket, when a voice called softly behind him. "Mr. Wells?" He turned. It was her again. Lena Everhart stood near the security desk, still in uniform. Her blonde hair was tied back in a high ponytail, slightly loosened after hours of work. She looked nervous, but not hesitant. In her hands was a thin folder, pages neatly stacked inside. "I hope this isn't out of place," she said quietly, stepping forward. "But I kept thinking about that memo." Cassian raised an eyebrow. "The algorithm draft?" She nodded, extending the folder. "I ran some rough simulations, and I wrote down a few ideas. I know it's not perfect, but I think there's something here." He took the folder, curiosity flickering in his tired eyes. Flipping it open, he scanned the pages slowly. Lena had handwritten every note, annotated logic, flow corrections, even small sketches of data projections. Her notes were sharp, focused, original. Midway through the second page, he stopped. His eyes narrowed as he studied a correction she had made. "What's this?" he asked, tapping the margin. "It's a change in the weighting function," Lena said softly. "I think the original underestimated real-time sentiment. But if we increase the feedback loop slightly," here, she pointed, We might correct for volatility lag." Cassian stared at her. Her voice was calm, though her fingers trembled. "It's just a theory. I know I clean floors, but I study data analytics, online, at night." He didn't speak right away. Then he looked back down at the folder. Cassian had reviewed hundreds of proposals, written by Ivy League grads, funded by venture capital. But this wasn't like theirs. It wasn't polished. It was raw, but deeply original. The thinking was precise, clear, different. He closed the folder and finally looked at her fully. "You did all this yourself?" Lena nodded, hesitantly. "Just ideas. I don't expect anything. I just thought maybe it could help." Cassian exhaled, the tension in his jaw easing slightly. "Come with me." Lena blinked. I still have 20 minutes left on my shift." He almost smiled. "Almost. I'll talk to your supervisor. This won't take long." They walked to the elevator. She followed in silence, heart pounding. The cables hummed softly as they ascended. Cassian stood beside her, unreadable, folder in hand. On the executive floor, the hallway was quiet, most offices already empty. Cassian opened his door, gestured for her to enter, and walked straight to his desk. He spread the pages out across the glass surface, reading again, slower this time, more intently. Lena hovered near the door, unsure if she should even be there. Several minutes passed. Then he looked up. "You know," he said, "if this works, even partially, it could change everything." She blinked. "Do you really think so?" He nodded. "The core model was mine. But your suggestions, they fix what we overlooked. Maybe what I overlooked." She inhaled, her hands clenched lightly at her sides. Cassian leaned back in his chair, gaze still on the paper. Then, without looking at her, he said, "Would you help me test it?" Lena froze. "Not officially," he added. "Not yet. Just help me figure out if this thing still has a pulse." A pause. Then she stepped forward, her voice just above a whisper. "Yes." Cassian finally looked up, and for the first time in weeks, something shifted in his expression, subtle but real. Hope. Neither of them fully knew what they had just begun. But in that quiet office, under the weight of collapse, a janitor and a fallen CEO took the first uncertain step toward something more than redemption. A second chance. Cassian paced outside the forgotten meeting room. No nameplate, no visitors, just a dusty carpet and a single flickering bulb. He had made his decision. This time, he would not wait on the board or pass it to another committee. This time, he would act. He opened the door and gestured inside. "Welcome to Project Backlight." Inside were Lina Everhart, her blonde ponytail pulled tight, and Ezra, the quiet veteran engineer who had stood by Verity Tech since its founding. The three of them formed a strange triangle, the founder fighting to save what remained, the loyal technician wearied by corporate missteps, and the janitor whose insight had sparked a flicker of hope. "Backlight," Cassian said, "because this is the light behind the crisis. We either shine it or stay in the dark." Lena nodded. Ezra responded with a short, silent nod. Cassian sat at the head of the table and opened the folder containing Lena's notes. "Over the next month," he said, "we prototype the algorithm. We bypass the board. We test it, validate it, and if it works, we present something real before they try to sell this company out from under us." Then they began. The nights blurred. Screens glowed with lines of code, dashboards, and data feeds. Ezra rebuilt pipelines, Cassian defined market assumptions, and Lina worked steadily in silence, penciling logic adjustments, reviewing anomalies, comparing sentiment analysis graphs. The quiet was broken only by keyboard clicks and the occasional hum of the HVAC overhead. One night, Lina leaned in, squinting. "Wait, something's off." Cassian and Ezra turned. She pointed to a data set on the screen. "Here." This third-party input. There are duplicate user IDs. If the system treats each as separate, we're generating double the sentiment weight. Ezra froze. That's from the 2022 data set, the one from the credit risk collapse. That mistake cost us credibility. Cassian came over, eyes sharp, jaw tight. He studied the screen, zooming in on the offending segment. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his shoulders relaxed, just slightly. You found the gap our data team missed for over a year. Lena looked down, cheeks flushed. I just saw something that did not look right. No, Cassian said. You prevented us from repeating history. They worked through the night. Hours slipped past. Sunrise edged into the sky beyond narrow windows. At one point, Lena stood and left the room to splash water on her face. Cassian noticed her coffee cup, still empty, for over an hour. Her movements were slower now, her eyes heavy but still focused. When she disappeared into the hallway, Cassian headed to the kitchenette. He brewed chamomile tea instead of coffee, placed the cup gently by her station, and beside it, a folded napkin. In pencil, he wrote, "Eyes need rest like minds do. You're doing great, very great." When Lena returned, she paused. She read the note, and for the first time since their late-night work began, she smiled, soft, unguarded, real. From that night forward, subtle gestures appeared. Cassian brought 2 hoodies each night, one for Ezra, one left neatly folded beside Lena's chair. He never said a word. Eventually, she wore it. He never told her to rest. But when her eyelids drooped, he dimmed the lights. When the hours stretched long and hunger crept in, protein bars quietly appeared on the table. Lena, once accustomed to passing unnoticed in hallways, mopping floors beneath hurried footsteps, began to feel seen, not in a spotlight, not with pity, just seen. And Cassian, who had built his empire on bold pitches, market instinct, and high-stakes investment, began to watch her in a new light. Her patience, her steadiness, the way she triple-checked her notes even when no one was watching. He had once thought power was in dominance, but now he saw it in endurance, in clarity. In someone who believed in something simply because it was worth believing in. There were no romantic words between them, no late-night confessions, just something deeper forming in the silence, respect, resilience, trust. Together, they revised the model. Together, they watched the early simulations begin to shift from red to green. No guarantees, but signs, signals, possibilities. Under the soft hum of old machinery and the glow of outdated monitors, something more than an algorithm began to form. They were building not just a solution, but a shared purpose, one that neither of them had seen coming. Weeks passed. The clock no longer felt like an enemy, but an ally ticking alongside them. Late one evening, as the city outside began to soften under the first touch of spring, the final line of code compiled cleanly. No errors, no flags. The algorithm had passed all simulations with flying colors. Ezra let out a low whistle, leaning back. That's it. It's done. Cassian did not smile immediately. He stood silently in front of the monitor, hands in his pockets, watching the lines of prediction metrics scroll. Then he turned to Lena and simply said, "It's time." The decision was swift. A private demo. Invitation only. Just a handful of investors Cassian still trusted, held in a small conference room far from the usual spotlight. No board, no media. Just results. Cassian led the preparation. Ezra handled the data integration. Lena, despite not being part of the official team, designed the presentation. Her fingers moved quickly but with care, turning complex visual models into clear, elegant slides. Cassian reviewed each one beside her, eyes narrowing occasionally, then nodding with quiet approval. The night before the demo, they stayed late in the main briefing room. Lena adjusted a projector cord behind the stage curtain, fidgeting with the clicker. Cassian watched her from the wings, noticing the slight tremble in her hands. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her, and placed his hand gently on the sleeve of her sweater, just enough pressure to ground her. "You don't need to stand in front of them," he said quietly. "Just being here is enough to steady me." She looked up, surprised, but said nothing. The look in her eyes said more than words. A few moments before the meeting began, Cassian pulled something small from his jacket pocket. He held it out to her, a pen, sleek and simple, with the Verity Tech logo engraved in silver. "If this works," he said, "I want you to keep this, as a memory of what we built together." Lena's fingers closed around it carefully. She nodded, then tucked it gently into her notebook. Her cheeks flushed, but she said only, "Thank you." The demo began. The room was silent but heavy with tension. The investors sat with crossed arms and guarded expressions. Cassian stood before them, crisp and calm, and walked them through the new system. How the AI detected false signals, how it corrected real-time distortions, how Lena's model flagged bias in third-party data sources before it entered the system. Slide by slide, number by number, their expressions changed. Arms uncrossed, eyes widened, questions came, not in skepticism but in curiosity. When the final demo prediction chart appeared, showing what the company's position would have been 6 months ago with this system in place, one of the investors whispered, "My God." The room broke into murmurs. Cassian let them absorb it before speaking. "We're not selling Verity Tech," he said calmly. "We're rebuilding it." There was a pause. Then, applause. It was not thunderous, but it was genuine. As the investors filed out, still talking in hushed excitement, Cassian remained inside for a moment, taking it all in. When he finally stepped into the hallway, the first person he saw was Lena. She stood just beyond the doorway, her hand pressed lightly against her chest, breath held. When she saw him, she straightened. Cassian approached slowly and held out a cold bottle of water. "We did it." Lena took it, fingers brushing his. She smiled, a little stunned. For a heartbeat, they stood in silence. Then Cassian stepped closer, and without planning, without thinking, they shared a brief embrace, gentle, unsure, but meaningful. His arms around her shoulders, her forehead resting just near his collarbone. It lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like more. When they stepped apart, neither of them spoke. There was no need. They both knew something had changed, not just for Verity Tech, but for them. The days after the demo felt different. There was motion again in Verity Tech's halls, not frantic, but focused. Investors signaled renewed interest. Staff returned from leaves. Hope was slowly, cautiously returning. Cassian called Lina into his office one afternoon. She looked surprised, hesitant as she stepped through the tall glass doors. He gestured to a chair. "I want to bring you on officially," he said. "Part of our data team, full-time." Lina froze. "Cassian, I don't think You earned it," he said gently. "I'm not ready." Her voice was low. "I'm not trained like them. I still Google things in the middle of work." He smiled. "So do I." But he did not push. "I'll wait. When you're ready, the door stays open." She lowered her gaze, but the way he said it made her feel seen, not judged, not pitied, just seen. Instead, Cassian had Ezra include her in informal team meetings, quiet technical huddles. She listened, took notes. Cassian never introduced her as the janitor, just Lena, no labels. One morning, she arrived late to a meeting and hovered near the doorway. The room was full, engineers, analysts, managers. She felt out of place. Cassian looked up, met her eyes, then silently pulled out the chair beside him. She blinked, then crossed the room and sat down. During a break, he vanished down the hall. When he returned, he set a cup in front of her. It was not coffee. It was chamomile tea. Lena looked at him, surprised. "How did you know I don't drink coffee?" Cassian leaned back. "Because every time you tried, you made a face." She laughed. I didn't think anyone noticed." "I did." She picked up the cup. It was warm, gentle, thoughtful. Later that week, Cassian held the first all-staff meeting since the crisis. The auditorium filled with cautious employees. Some had seen friends laid off. Others had nearly quit. All were waiting for something to believe in again. Cassian stepped on stage. He did not speak like a CEO reclaiming power. He spoke with calm conviction about failure, about rebuilding trust, and about what came next. Then he paused. "There's someone in this building," he said, "whose name most of you do not know. But this person saved the company. Not with a title or seniority, but with clarity, discipline, and a quiet refusal to give up." Murmurs swept through the crowd. Heads turned. But he never said her name. He just added, "This company fell because we stopped listening. That will not happen again." At the back of the room, Lina stood near the doors, unnoticed by most. Her hands clenched together, her breath uneven. As the crowd applauded, she stayed still, eyes glossy with silent tears. Afterward, she stepped into a side hallway, needing space. Cassian found her there a moment later. He did not speak right away, just stood beside her. Then, softly, "You okay?" Lina nodded, swiping her cheek quickly. "I know you didn't want recognition," he said. She gave a breathless laugh. "Still don't." He smiled faintly. "Good, because I wasn't trying to give it to everyone else." He turned toward her fully now. "I just wanted you to know. I know." Lina blinked, her heart full in her chest. There was no big moment, no confession, no kiss, just quiet presence, a beat of understanding. For someone who had lived most of her life in the background, that moment, being fully seen, was everything. The envelope arrived midweek, slipped under the door of Lina's shared apartment. She picked it up, expecting a flyer or another rent notice. Inside was a formal letter bearing Veritech's seal. Tucked inside it was a second page, handwritten in even, careful strokes. The first page was an official scholarship offer. Full tuition, books, and living stipend for a one-year certificate program in data analytics at a top institution. The second was a note from Cassian. "Lina, you once saved something I thought was broken beyond repair. I hope this helps you see what I see, someone not just capable but meant to build. You don't owe me anything, just keep going. See." She read it twice, then again. Her hands trembled. It was everything she had quietly dreamed of, and it terrified her. The night before her first day, she barely slept. What if she failed? What if she didn't belong in classrooms full of people who had never scrubbed floors at 3 a.m.? Still, she packed her bag. At 7:15 a.m., she stood at the edge of the parking lot, hugging her coat. She could walk, she could take the train. She had just decided to walk when a dark car pulled up. The window lowered. Cassian leaned over. "You look like you're about to fight a dragon." "I was just going to walk," she said. He stepped out and opened the passenger door. "Not today, not on your first day." After a pause, she smiled and got in. They drove in silence, calm, unrushed. Cassian spoke first. "I washed dishes at a diner, Mission Street, night shift. I used to study business books between orders. Figured if I worked hard enough, maybe I'd earn a shot." Lina tucked that piece of him away. "I lived with my grandmother," she said. "She sewed uniforms for a hotel. Taught me how to fix zippers and seams." Cassian smiled. "So that's why your notebooks have stitched edges." She laughed. "Guilty." They reached campus as sunlight spilled over brick walls. Cassian parked at the curb. "You'll be fine," he said. "What if I'm not?" "Then we learn," he said softly. "But you're not doing this alone." Her throat tightened. As she stepped out, he handed her a thermos. "Chamomile," he said, "for when the first lecture makes no sense." Weeks passed. Lina pushed through algorithms, market models, coding frameworks. She studied harder than ever before, exhausting, thrilling, and on certain mornings, when the cold bit or nerves crept in, Cassian's car would be waiting at the curb. He never asked questions, he never made it routine, he was just there. Finally, graduation day arrived. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Lena, in cap and gown, sat near the front, twisting the edge of her sleeve. Her name was called last, honors graduate, top percentile. She stepped onto the stage, accepted her certificate, and turned to descend. Her eyes searched the room. And there, in the back, stood Cassian. No camera, no spotlight, just him, clapping slowly, pride visible in his gaze. After the ceremony, beneath the shade of an oak tree, he approached her. He handed her a bouquet, wildflowers, unarranged but honest. "You made it." She looked at him. "I wasn't sure I could." "I was." For a moment, silence settled around them like sunlight through leaves. Then she reached out and took his hand. She held it just long enough for the gesture to say everything she could not, then let go, flustered, looking away. Cassian didn't speak, but the smile that spread across his face was quiet, content, and lasting, the kind of smile that lingers when you know something rare has just begun. 2 years later, Verity Tech was no longer gasping for air, it was leading the market. The AI-driven financial platform they had launched had redefined predictive modeling, outpacing competitors by years. Industry analysts praised its accuracy, elegance, and ethical approach. Few knew the real story behind it. Lena Everhart, now Director of Strategic Analytics, wore her blonde hair in a sleek ponytail. Her office had glass walls and a team of analysts, yet she still arrived early and reviewed code late. Some habits stayed. That afternoon, she stood backstage at Verity Tech's largest press event yet, the global launch of their next-gen platform. The room buzzed with media and investors, every seat filled. She fumbled slightly with the mic at her collar. Just then, a familiar presence appeared behind her. Cassian. He reached over, fingers steady, and adjusted the clip gently. "Just be yourself," he said near her ear. "That's enough." She looked up at him, calmed instantly. Her heart settled. She nodded. They stepped onto the stage together. Cassian took the podium first, recapping the company's growth, breakthroughs, and future plans. Then he paused. "There's a part of our story you haven't heard," he said, "the part that saved us." He turned slightly toward Lena. 2 years ago, when this company was crumbling, I dropped a page in a hallway. A draft. A forgotten idea. I told the person who found it that it meant nothing. The room went quiet. But she didn't throw it away. She studied it. She returned it, not just as it was, but better. That single page became the seed of the system we launched today. A murmur rippled through the room. Cassian's voice softened. That page saved the company. But she, he looked directly at Lena, she saved something harder. From his pocket, he pulled out a single folded page. "This one isn't a business memo, not a contract, but a promise. A lifetime one. Would you take it?" The audience gasped. Cameras clicked. Lena stood frozen, then nodded. Once, clearly. Applause erupted. But they didn't move right away. Cassian stepped closer and took her hand. Later, after the crowd had dispersed and the lights had dimmed, they walked out of the building together. Outside, the city was washed in gold. The sunset lit the glass around them. Cassian turned to her, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "Ready?" She smiled. "I've been ready since the first paper." He chuckled. "Which you weren't supposed to keep." "And yet," she replied, squeezing his hand, "I did." They stepped into the evening together, her golden ponytail catching the last light, a quiet echo of all they had overcome. This time, neither of them walked alone. "Thank you for being part of this journey, a story of quiet strength, resilience, and a single moment that changed everything." If it moved you, if you believe in second chances and the unseen brilliance in everyday people, then stay with us. Hit that hype button and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more tales that inspire and heal in gentle, lasting ways. Until next time, trust in quiet hearts, in the strength you do not see, and in the power of stories yet to be told.